Hey everyone, it's Scott from SertMedia.com, and today I'm going to be going over the Rank Math SEO plugin. If you type in SEO in your Add Plugins menu, you will be given Rank Math on the far right. Rank Math is a plugin that has a lot of interesting press around it. We're going to get into that much later, but as you can see, you need to connect with your free Rank Math account to use it on this site. So I'm just gonna gathering usage data helps us make the plugin better for you by understanding blah, 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 blah. All right, let's see if this will work. So, invalid username. Great. So I need to connect and create my Rank Math account before I can even use this plugin. Very frustrating. I'm just going to create one over here. And this is already the worst setup of any SEO plugin I've personally ever tested. And I'm not surprised because I already know what the general details of this plugin are, and I'm going to get into them later. The team behind Rank Math is a little bit interesting. So when it comes to Rank Math, it's a little, I wouldn't call it misleading, but their actual development team, I believe, is the same team that's behind another very popular repository. So if I just, this should work now. If I push in my email and then Scott.Hartley and then copy and paste the random password that they generated. So they sent me my password in an email. Okay, there we go. So let's get back into this plugin. The website is compatible to run Rank Math SEO. Well, I would certainly hope so. So we can either start the wizard or we're going to go to the dashboard. I'm not going to do the wizard because it's not targeted for individuals like me. So once you open it, you get a giant storm of options in here. Some of them are actually really good options that should exist in other SEO plugins. Some of them I disagree with why they're in there. So the dashboard is home to a modules section. Modules are almost like mini add-ons for the plugin that just increase and provide extra functionality for the website. I'm going to go through all of them, and then I'm going to enable some of them if I can. So we have the 404 monitor, which basically will just monitor if your website has 404s. A lot of people use this kind of functionality. I more or less try not to if I can. And the reason I don't use them is because users will get a 404 error, which is typically a fine thing to happen. There's nothing wrong with getting a 404 error on the website, but they'll get a lot of dumb ones. For instance, if you have an iOS browser, it may request to see if the server has an iOS icon that could then be used to add as a bookmark or stick to the home page. That will generate a 404 error in the 404 logger, and you will end up getting, if your site has a lot of traffic, hundreds of thousands of 404s in there. And depending on the tool, they may not clean them up regularly. So your database could get very well flooded, especially with the constant extra writing that's being done to tell you that there was a 404 from here, the IP address, the user agent, what it was going to, etc. So it's useful if you believe you're losing traffic or you have a substantial amount of traffic ending up on the 404 page. But if you don't believe you have an issue, I don't recommend using it just from a performance standpoint. The next one is ECF, which is just support for advanced custom fields, so that way the plugin can analyze content in advanced custom fields. It's very good. AMP is a suggestion to install the AMP plugin from WordPress.org to make Rank Math work with accelerated mobile pages. If you have AMP, this will set it up to work with them. Otherwise, you have to make sure that you have the AMP plugin from WordPress.org installed. bbPress, this is something that I've wanted in Yoast SEO for ever. I just checked my calendar. It was indeed, I've wanted this feature forever. And then they have BuddyPress as well. So these are issues that actually are very frequent in most of their SEO plugins, where they won't add the proper meta tags to the or title tags for SEO for BuddyPress or bbPress pages. So you have to do some roundabout coding to get them to just ignore those pages altogether. And there's been so many people requesting support on them, and it's just never happened. but but it does exist, and this is one of the plugins where it does exist. I'm not going to play with it, but it's there. Link counter will just count the number of links in your posts, and internal and external links, and it's just as simple. It's very similar to what's in Yoast SEO. Local SEO and Google Knowledge Graph, this should be enabled. We'll get to that in a minute. Redirects, you should have a redirect tool somewhere on the website. This should be installed. Role Manager allows you to use internal WordPress roles to control which of your site admins can change Rank Math SEO settings. If you're the only admin on your site, you don't need this. If you have multiple admins on your website, then you might need this. But if you have multiple users on your websites who are, say, authors, you don't really need this. Search Console will just connect Rank Math with Google Search Console to get you important information. SEO Analysis is just the standard SEO analysis tool. The Sitemap is obviously Sitemap. These are all options that are active by default and definitely should be enabled. And then WooCommerce, if you're using WooCommerce, obviously activate the WooCommerce functionality. So you might be wondering, what are all these options really for? And now we're going to dig into the actual options menu, and this is where you're going to start seeing where things get really complicated. And some of the suggestions that they give, I think, are just not good. So strip category base. This is not a good functionality to have. You don't want to do this. They have a thing that says, why do this? And you're going to go to this, and it says, where reviews is the category name, to make your URLs cleaner, you'll want to use this setting to strip it. There is not going to be a direct SEO benefit from stripping your categories base from your archives. So there's no use, because what's going to happen is you're going to run into scenarios, maybe even with tags. Let's say you have a automotive tag category, but then you tag the website as well. So into the tags, you may have another cars/automotive as your tag. And if the base is stripped, then you can have two things that end up at the same URL. Now, this does it for categories, but it's just not something good to have. If you want to create a separate landing page, so let's say you're a news site and you cover Apple news very frequently, and you have a category /Apple, that way you can categorize all your post content. And then you want to create a new homepage almost that is directly meant to illustrate and show off content that ties to Apple. You can't do that because you would have two URLs that are exactly the same. There's just no benefit to do this. I would never recommend doing this. And the fact that it's still in a tool is just kind of dumb. There's no reason. Redirect attachments will redirect all attachment pages URLs to the post they appear. Now, makes sense. Redirect orphan media will redirect attachments without a parent post to this URL. This used to be the best way to do it, and Yoast SEO were the ones that really came up with the idea, as far as my understanding. Maybe it was all in one, I can't remember. It was forever ago. The functionality is basically WordPress creates attachment pages, which are a custom post type that store images. Well, you don't need to have the image. You don't need a whole separate page on your website just to show the image that they're going to click to anyways. So the old way of doing it was you would redirect the attachment page URLs to the post that the image returns on. But the better method is actually to redirect attachment URLs to the image that they go to, which would then make this option fairly moot if this was the functionality. It's not a bad option, it's just not the best option in my opinion. Remove stop words from permalinks. This is an option that doesn't really matter. People used to do it all the time so that they could try and get more keywords in their URLs, but it really doesn't matter too much anymore. No follow or external links. Please don't ever no follow all external links. You should only be no following links to sites that are sketchy, in which case you probably shouldn't be linking them in the first place, or affiliate links that you're promoting. That way you're not passing PageRank. But you don't want to no follow every link, because there is no benefit to you doing that. You're not giving yourself more link juice. You're just you're just saying, okay, Google, my watch is not going to be kind with me with that. But you say, okay, Googlebot, what's going to happen is this page doesn't matter. I don't want any rank going past. I don't want any juice going to this page. I want you to just not even follow this link. Just ignore it completely, which could be bad if you're trying to illustrate that if you're trying to build your page's authority effectively. External links are a good thing, so long as you're using good external sources. For the ones that are obviously promoted, you can no-follow them, and that's going to be just fine. No-follow image links. The exact same concept as above. I wouldn't really recommend hosting images locally anyways. I would really recommend hosting the images locally anyways. It's just going to be faster, and it's just much easier. Open external links in new tab or window. Don't do this because it's terrible for your user experience. The use case for about blank for target equals underscore blank is really narrow because users want to be in control of where the links are opening. Opening a link in anything is relatively easy because all you need to do is hit your mouse scroll wheel, or on Apple Mac you can double tap it and then just select the option. Nevertheless, don't do this. It's terrible. Images, add missing alt attributes. This will automatically add alt attributes to the image. Where does it get it? Well, you can generate it. You go in here, and it's just like SEO friendly images. Alt attribute format, you can do title and then the count, which is kind of odd. So it'll be the title of the post, and then you can do a separator. You could do the file name. You only would really want to do the file name if you're actually naming your images decently, which you're probably not going to be doing so. You could do the post title, but if the post title is completely unrelated to the image, then you're not doing anybody any favors. And you have a bunch of options in here, and in concept, these are useful tools because nobody wants to write alt tags. It takes too long and you forget. But doing it dynamically and then being unrelated doesn't help people with screen readers. Alt attributes are first and foremost for screen readers. You're helping those who have a disability understand what the images are because they can't see them. Don't do this. And as far as title attributes go, you can do the same thing. If you're going to be using these tools, you might as well just do both. But it's better to write your descriptions if at all you can. Breadcrumbs, you can enable breadcrumb code and it'll spit it out on the front end. You can choose your separators here. A lot of these options look very familiar. And then you can just turn it off. Webmaster tools, you can paste your code in here for a bunch of services. Google, Bing, Baidu, Alexa for some odd reason. Yandex, Pinterest, Norton SafeWeb. I mean, it's a very odd collection of services, and some of them don't really matter too much from an SEO perspective, but you can paste them all in here. Then you have your options to edit your robots.txt file and edit your htaccess file. Then there's the Others tab, usage tracking. You can have it off. You can auto update the plugin. You can show an SEO score. Show the calculated SEO score as a badge on the front end for selected post types. You wouldn't want to do any of those. This is just promotional nonsense for the plugin. You'd never want to update something automatically without you having a backup in case something goes wrong. If you want to send them tracking information, by all means, go ahead. And then you can set RSS before and after content here, and then you have your available variables. We also have our redirections menu. Please do not redirect all 404s to the homepage. That is like SEO mistake number one that I see everybody do is they'll install a plugin. It's like, oh, it saves you all that link juice. No, it doesn't. When you have a 301 redirect, you're telling Google that this page is now this page. It no longer exists and it was permanently moved to be this page. If content doesn't exist anymore, you want to use a 410 to declare the content's been deleted and removed. See? And then you could do 302 if it's temporary. You really only ever use 401, 410, or 451. But in most use cases, it's going to be a 301 because you moved the URL, or a 410 because the content was deleted. Never redirect it to the homepage. It's such a common amateurish mistake because it provides users a terrible user experience. If a user clicks a link on your website for some sort of post, maybe it's about the best wireless headsets, but then that post doesn't exist anymore, so you redirected to the homepage. Well, now they're going to try and figure out why they keep getting sent to the homepage, and then if they can't get to that blog post that they wanted to, then they're just going to leave your site and go to somebody else's, and you didn't provide them anything useful. if they know the content doesn't exist, it allows them, one, to, if depending on how your 404 page is set up, it can allow them to find similar content to what they're looking for, or it will allow them just an easy way to get out as opposed to getting stuck to a page they don't know and thinking something's wrong. One useful functionality, though, is the auto post redirect. So extend the functionality of WordPress by creating redirects in our plugin when you change the slug of a post. If you update the URL of your post, which you will do frequently, you would want it to be automatically redirected. Yoast SEO Premium, they have a similar functionality that works on the same concept. This is for free in the plugin. It's a great option. You should always be redirecting content if you change the URL structure, because you want users to make sure they're getting that same post. And just because you change the slug slightly, you don't want them to end up on a 404 page, and definitely don't want them to end up on your homepage. And then you have the option to integrate with Search Console. Now, this is a feature that, frankly, I never understood why it was started, because you basically connect it with Rank Math and you get the Google search profile, and it'll give you important information. What they define as important or not is very If you want a better example of this and you want to streamline Search Console information into your WordPress admin panel, I highly recommend that you use the Google Sitekit plugin, and that'll allow you to get a bunch of useful information for practically everything on your site. And it's made directly by Google, so you know it's going to be, I wouldn't say better, but it's going to be what you're going to want to look at. So anyway, we're going to go down to the titles and meta section. One thing about this plugin that I am not a fan of is it drags on and on and on with its settings. It is not streamlined in the sense at all. It is so option heavy, and it's, I don't know why it is, but we're just going to go. So title and meta. Global meta, you can set robots.txt for global settings. You should really just not touch any of these. Advanced robots meta, you can set the advanced meta for the max snippet, max video preview, and the max image preview. So these are new markups that Google uses. You'll just want to go ahead and leave these. No index, empty category, and tag archives. I recommend that you do this. If you have nothing on those pages, first of all, you probably shouldn't have them unless you have a post scheduled to go in there, or you should be deleting them. You can do a separator character. These are straight out of Used SEO. You can do a custom one. You can change it, use some arrows. You can do a heart if you want to. Straight out of them. Capitalized titles, automatically capitalize the first character of all title tags. Yes. Depending on how you're doing your cases, you should always at least have the very first letter of the very first word in your title capitalized. I mean, this isn't a mistake that most people make, so I guess it's okay that it's in there, but it's kind of an odd option. And then for the open graph thumbnail, this will be the fallback URL when your post is shared on social media, Facebook, Pinterest, and the like. Always make sure you're using a fallback URL. For your Twitter card type, you can do summary with large card or just a summary. Now, local SEO. The local SEO is your schema, your contact information that gets spit out with schema markup for Google to understand your local business. So you can do a person or an organization. This is just like the Yoast SEO, except you have a short code to display the contact information on the front end. And then you should also make sure you claim the business on Google My Business. But what you'll do is if you're anything that's not a person, so you're in a business, you're going to click organization, put in your name, your logo, URL, email, the address. Address format is for how you want it to display on the front end, not how it's going to be displayed in the markup. So the default one is fine. You can change it to however you want. The business type, you can select your business type from a large drop down. These are going to be the types that Google recognizes and supports. Then you want to make sure you add your opening hours. The one thing that you can't do on here is set custom hours, for instance, on a holiday. So if you were not open, and today was Veterans Day at the time of this recording, then you would not be able to add that in here. You can add time, but it's only going to be for days. So if you have split hours in the middle of your day, let's say Monday you're open from 7, and maybe you do lunch and then you take a break and then you do it for dinner. So if you're a restaurant, you open at 1, you open at noon, you're open till 3, and then you have a break from 3, and then you open up at 5, and you're open from 5 to midnight. That would be an example of when these split hours would be useful. However, you cannot set up any holiday hours. You have to do that from your Google My Business page or suggesting an edit on a listing that you already have in Google. Opening hours, you can do it in 24-hour format or a 12-hour format. This is going to be used on the front end on the contact shortcode. For most people, just use the 12 hours. Make sure you put in the phone number, and then you have to specify what that phone number is for. Then you can do a price range using the dollar signs. There's a whole guide about this information on Google's Docs for it. Highly recommend that you read it when you're trying to set your price range up. The About page, make sure you include the About page, your contact page, all should be included, and then add a Google Maps API key to get the geo coordinates. Now, Google Maps API keys require you to put in some sort of payment method, and they don't currently allow you to do it for free anymore because it requires the method. And then you also must include the geo coordinates to get the map working. And as it mentions here, multiple location option is coming soon, so it doesn't currently exist. Social meta, this is exactly what you would expect. It's the Facebook and the Pinterest and your Tumblr and your MySpace pages that you want included that can be shown in knowledge graph data. You want to paste them all here that you support. Some of the ones that may be listed, I don't know if they're directly supported currently. For instance, I don't believe Reddit is actually supported to display in knowledge graph, but the option is there. But you'll want to fill out all the ones that you have. Don't just spin up a bunch of social media pages for the sake of filling this out. This won't do much for your ranking. Homepage. Edit your homepage markup. We will do a walkthrough of the titles and the metas and everything at the end. Authors, you can enable your author archives, which you would want. You want to leave the author base as the normal. Author robots meta, they have it as custom, which it doesn't seem to be useful, because I would just leave it at the default meta because we have the global meta already set up to allow them to be indexed. Author archive title, this is fine. Add SEO meta box for users. This will allow them to modify the SEO settings in their user profile under users and then your profile. Miscellaneous pages, your date archives and your search archives and your 404 pages. Posts. These are going to be your general setup. It's basically, these are all quite literally copied and pasted from Yoast SEO, more or less, about the default recommended setup. So we're just going to skip past all of this. The rich snippet type will allow you to set it. Typically, it's an article. Otherwise, you would put a blog post or a... Doesn't seem that one is in here. Well, an article will more or less be the best option for your post. Otherwise, the blog does exist, but article is going to be the recommended one. Your headline is your title. Perfectly fine. Article type. So you would want to click article. Now, it says that Google does not allow person as the publisher for articles. Organization will have to be used instead. This is true. You will need to mark it up as an organization for an article post type. Otherwise, you have to use a blog post. And you definitely can't use a news article. So this is fine for now because we're just demonstrating. But if you had your option set as a person, as your organization type, set it to blog post. For your post robots meta, this is fine. Link suggestions. It's always good to have link suggestions. And they use titles, or you can use the focus keyword as the default text for links instead of post titles. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but it's an okay, I don't want to say it's bad, but it's an okay link suggestion tool. Primary taxonomy is, again, always make this your categories, then add your meta box and enable bulk editing. Pages, this is literally the exact same setup that it was over on the other thing. The only thing that doesn't really make sense is the article type is a blog post, an article, or a news article. Well, it's actually going to be none. But we're just going to leave it at the default. For media, this is your attachment pages. This doesn't matter because we have them redirected. And it already says there's no index, so it's perfect. Your categories markup, this is more or less perfectly fine. You can remove the snippet data, so you can remove schema data from the category. I highly recommend you do that. Not going to be good. So these are fine, these are fine. And the only thing I would do is under tags, I would uncheck the no index. Tags are just as valuable as categories when done correctly. There's no reason to strip them. Okay, so now we're going to go to the sitemap settings. Now, sitemap settings, not a lot needs to really be done. Links per sitemap, 200, like I mentioned in another video that I did, was all-in-one SEO, and then I did another one for the SEO framework. 1,000 at max is typically where you want to be. For smaller hosts, 200 is fine. If you're on a really bad host, 200 should be just fine. If your bad host can't handle 200 in the sitemap and it starts timing out and the sitemap fails to generate, at that point, it's more of a hosting issue. Images in the sitemap on. Your images should always be in the sitemap when possible. Include the featured images, even if it does not appear directly in the post content. Yes, this should be in your sitemap. More or less, you're not going, so more or less when you're including a featured image, it's going to show up on your site. If you're in a scenario where you have a page on your website or it's your post and you do have a featured image, but the featured image is not displayed on the front end, you wouldn't really need to include it, but it's attached to a page, so it's not going to do you any harm. It's just something to keep in mind. And then make sure to ping search engines. You can exclude specific post IDs and terms here, but there's not really a good reason to do that. Authors. You can exclude specific roles here. Typically, when you think of an author, you think of an author. This is actually all user roles, down from administrator all the way down to shop manager, teacher, or anything from the various plugins that have been on here. Pretty much all of them will come up. Really, you should only really need authors to show up, but if you're using a site such as BuddyPress or BBPress, and you have users of different content types, you would want them to show up so that way you can just get extra users appearing in Google search. Post, you obviously want the post to appear in the sitemap. If you have a custom field for handling images, you'll want to include them here. Pages you'll include, you don't want to include the sitemap. And you don't want to include media in the sitemap. For your categories, they should be included in there. Include empty terms, no, because we have it set to no index them if they're empty. And then include your tags in there. Something that's fairly redundant is if the content is no indexed, you don't need it to appear in your sitemap, because Google is going to go to that page in your sitemap thinking it's important, but you said that it wasn't and it doesn't need to index it. So I wish that this was streamlined a lot more. There's no reason for a content type that's been no indexed to appear in the search results. And if something is indexed, it should appear in the sitemap. So when I marked tags to be indexable, it should have automatically set this to include in sitemap because I want it to be indexed. Redirections. This is basically every redirection tool ever. You will have the ability to modify settings. You will be able to add a redirect, and you can export it as an htaccess or an nginx config file to append it to either one of those files. Otherwise, it'll just do a default setting. And if you click settings, it's going to take you all the way back to this general settings menu. Simple, sweet, and to the point. Search console, we're not going to go into it because I'm not particularly a fan of this implementation of it. I much prefer the Google Sitekit version. SEO analysis. You can start a site-wide analysis. What does it do? It analyzes the whole website and gives you a rudimentary score. So, for instance, it says image alt attributes. Some of your images lack alt attributes. Okay, so these two images are missing alt attributes. That should be fixed. Keywords in your title and description, more or less, but I don't think we really have any focus keywords set for this to be useful. The link ratio. There are one or more issues with the number of links. There's too few internal links. Yes, more internal links is always a good thing. SEO title. It says the title is fine. Your tagline is set to the default, so you should change this. I agree with that recommendation. Your site is accessible, of course. Permalinks set to post name. That is good. Focus keywords. Yep. There are one post and no focus keyword was set, and then it gives you a search preview for desktop, mobile, and then a mobile snapshot from Thumb.io, I guess, and it's not loading. Okay. I don't know why this is here, but it's the feature. Your page contains no index meta. The www version and the non-www versions of your site are not redirected. That's a good test. I wouldn't have noticed that. But the only issue that I have with this is there is no www version of this subdomain because it is a subdomain. Nobody puts www.staging2.assertmedia.com. That's just way too many. This doesn't make any sense for this scenario of it being under a subdomain. Nobody has a www subdomain. And then it says some open graph tags are missing. Yep. That should be fixed. Your robots.txt file includes one or more disallow. Make sure that you only block cart. Okay, that's kind of odd. Schema meta has been found. You have not linked Google Search Console yet. This does not matter for SEO. This shouldn't really be here. It doesn't matter. Performance recommendations. Some of your CSS isn't minified. Well, yeah. Minify.js. Really basic recommendations. Security. I wouldn't really trust this thing for giving you constant. Wait, your website has no Facebook connect to it. Okay, so it's just giving you social SEO recommendations to create social media pages. If you're not using the social media page and you have no plans to, you don't make videos, you do not need a YouTube page. And then Google safe browsing, secure connection. A lot of these are just kind of fluff recommendations. Two plugins from your website are publicly visible, and your theme is not publicly visible. That doesn't particularly matter. Status tools. This is debugging tools that does put in to help them debug. So we could go through and enable all these different options, but we're not going to. What I would do is, you see the Search Console option? Turn it off. You don't want it. Just use Google Sitekit. It's much better. So now we're going to go ahead. We're going to go to a page, and we are going to edit the page. Now, one thing that I liked about the SEO framework is it would give you a basic recommendation and give you like a quick readout in color-coded and labeled recommendations on this page. This does not do that. It won't do anything until it has time to analyze the page to give these very specific recommendations, and all it says is update your post. So we are going to do that. We're going to edit this page, the home page. We're going to scroll all the way down. So link suggestions, we can't show any link suggestions for this post. Try selecting categories and tags for this post, and mark other posts as pillar content to make them show up here. That's kind of lame. If I installed Yoast SEO Premium and its suggestions would show up. I would expect suggestions to not be tied to categories and tags because that's fairly broad. You would want to make sure that the text itself is being mentioned in the post. Let's see. Insert keywords you want to rank for. So you want to put your focus keyword. I'm just typing the word business because I think I've mentioned in this auto-generated page, business has come up. Okay, so your first keyword appears in here. Your content is not long. Consider using at least 600 words. 600 words on a homepage. That would be a lot of copy to the point that nobody's reading it except for Googlebot. Your focus keyword does not appear in the SEO title. Your focus keyword does not appear in the SEO meta description or in the URL. So if I just type in the word business, what's one thing that's really bad when it comes to a lot of keyword suggestion based focus keyword tools is what will happen is, there you go. using 60 out of 60, and now it's all in there. Yeah, we're just going to call this the business page. Even though this doesn't matter because this is the home page. Custom meta description. Business. Should be about right here. Oh, so green just means you filled it up. Okay. Should probably cut out these three. All right. So one of the issues that commonly occur with these tools, if you just spam the focus keyword in it, it typically will not flag you that you're being spammy. So I've spammed the word business as much places as I can. All right, it has not flagged it. Keyword density says it's 2.12, but clearly this is not a good meta description and this is not a good title. I will never rank for the word business. And then it says try to attain 100 out of 100 for better chances of ranking. This is pillar content, which is basically cornerstone content from Yoast. Basically the same concept. You mark a post that you're frequently updating and is important for your ranking. Could not find any internal links in your content. Oh no. Your title tag doesn't contain a positive or negative sentiment. What? monkeylearn.com. Headlines with strong emotional sentiment tend to receive more clicks. Okay. I mean, yeah, clickbaity. Power words are tried and true words that copywriters use to attract more clicks. Yep. Your SEO title doesn't contain a word. And it contain a number. Headlines with numbers are 36% more likely to generate clicks. Okay, these are all great recommendations for anything that's not SEO. If you're trying to do social media marketing, you would definitely want to get a more clickbaity title. Doing it in Google search, though, can backfire. And that's why having SEO plugins that allow you to modify social settings is very important. Because business isn't good. But if I write, we asked 100 business owners their thoughts on the economy. I misspelled the word economy. Good job. But the point is when you're using social media, you want to have a more clickbaity title because you're going to already have an audience. The difference between social media and search marketing is that when you're in search results, you're trying to get your content in front of users. When you have a social media following, you're putting the content in front of a user base already. But when you're writing for search, you're trying to write content that is going to appear for those users in the first place because they don't know who you are. They're not following you. But when you're on social media, you have a following already, I hope. But if you don't have a following, you should get one. But when you're working with a following, you have to make clickbaity titles so that way they'll actually click on them. But in search, you don't want to do that because you're trying to rank for keywords and key phrases in search. So the recommendation should actually be modified a little bit. I would not suggest to use a positive or power word directly for search. I would instead focus on trying to get keywords in there and have content that makes sense and sounds clickable without it being spammy and promoted. Everybody knows those BuzzFeed articles that just come up with some nonsense clickbaity title, and everybody says that I'm not going to click that, it's clickbait, but millions of people click those articles because they're clickbaity, and most of their traffic, I bet, is coming from social media campaigns as opposed to being directly from search. BuzzFeed News, entirely separate. They are going to be the exact opposite because they are a reputable news platform. That's pretty much going to give you, though, the best idea. You have a very large plugin, and it's not inherently a bad plugin. There are some options that are quite redundant, though. The interface needs to be streamlined a little bit. There are options that I feel that should just be enabled and disabled together to make it easier. And more importantly, I feel that some of the recommendations just don't make a lot of sense. And if you haven't, and touching back on the point that I originally made, was that Rank Math is owned by a company called My Theme Shop. They don't really disclose this particularly well because they treat Rank Math. It's the Rank Math team. It's the Rank Math SEO plugin on rankmath.com. And the plugin is hard. And the plugin had a lot of bad press during launch, but it sits at like it sits at an abnormally high rating. And that in itself isn't necessarily a miss, but my issue is when you have a plugin and it has 400 or I think it's like 480 clicks, reviews that are 5 stars, and it has like 15 that are 1 stars, it raises some eyebrows because no plugin is going to end up with a rating system that high. It's a little amiss, and a lot of the functionality is a little pointless, and it doesn't hold your hand enough to help users understand what settings are supposed to be used when. But aside from the plugin and aside from the abnormally high rating on the WordPress.org that it has, it's not bad, and it's just not my favorite, and it's definitely not my preferred tool. I would recommend you go with whatever SEO plugin is easiest for you, of course, but that's where I stand on it. Overall, it's a decent plugin. It does its job as I expect it to. It gives me my meta tags and it spits them out for me. Other than that, no real complaints. If you have any questions about the plugin, I'll try to help you, or you can go to their WordPress.org page and you can ask their support directly. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.